Can you tell me everything you know about Rizal?
So, Jose Rizal was born in 1861 in the small town of Calamba, Laguna.
Hmm?
And he had about 9 sisters and one brother. And his parents, Francisco Mercado and Teodora Alonso, owned the first stone house in Calamba. They owned a flour mill, a drugstore, and a store that sold a lot of goods in market day. They had about 1,000 books in their library. But some say that Rizal was born tiny, and his head is too big for his body. But he grew up like any other child. He watched the fruit trees and animals in his family garden, and goes fishing in the road and horseback. And he exercises to build a strong body. But Rizal was different in some ways. He learned ABC in the age of 2. He can read his sister's picture book in the age of 3. And his mother, a well-educated woman, was his first teacher and told him stories in Spanish and taught him how to write stories in Tagalog. And in the age of 4, he can make figures out of clay. In the age of 5, he could draw pictures of animals and people. He colors them with vegetables and fruits. And for the black, he used the suit of a cooking pot. At the age of 6, he was asked to draw a picture of a saint for a town fiesta. And he made every town mask for every town fiesta. And instead of being asked money, he asked for firecrackers instead. And in the age of 8, he wrote a poem for children to read called Ang Aking Kababayan. And one day, his mother saw Rizal watching Firefly go to an oil lamp. And he told him a story about a fly that went near a flame. But the mother said not to go near the flame. But the fly disobeyed, so its wing burned and it died. Rizal understood why the moth flew near the flame. Like him, he wanted to go near the light. To him, the light was the truth. Then he learned about the truth of the Philippines. In that time, the Philippines was not a free country. It was owned by Spain and ruled by a Governor General. Then Rizal was also the seventh child in his family. Then he went to Ateneo to study. Because of his small size, he was put in the back. But he won the most medals. So his classmates called him Emperor. And he got all excellent in all of his grades. Then after Ateneo, he was sent to University of Santo Tomas. And he didn't do better than the one in Ateneo. Then after that, his mom was imprisoned because the Spaniards thought that he poisoned his cousin's wife, but that was a big lie. But he was imprisoned. Then the Indios have to bow and salute properly to the Spaniards. And one night, Rizal got whipped by one of the Spaniards because he didn't saw his suit at night. And there was two groups of Spaniards, and the priests were called friars, and another powerful group was the Guardia Civil. Then Rizal told Pasiano that he wanted to finish his medical studies in Spain. So Pasiano gave him 156 pesos to go to Spain. It was more than 1 month to arrive. And when he entered Spain, he realized that their country was colorful and gay, but he was disappointed that the Filipinos there did not speak for their homeland. But Rizal made friends with two Filipinos in Spain, and it was Marcelo del Pilar and Juan Luna, and they won a competition. But Rizal had no food left, and he spent all of his money on education. And rather than taking a car or a train, he rather walked by himself until his legs get sore. Then his friends gave him food, and he told Rizal to make a speech. And the speech was about that he said that Filipinos were just as good as Spaniards. That inspired the Filipinos, but they know that they'll anger the Spaniards. And Spaniards got very angry at him. And that's the first time they ever saw a person that's brave enough to speak for their homeland. Then his friends told him not to go back to his home, but he wanted to help his family because the Spaniards were angry at him from what he said. So he went back to the Philippines, and he called Europe the land of liberty. Then his family was happy to see him, but he knew that his life was in danger. His father told him not to eat outside because he might be poisoned by his enemies. And this Jesuit teacher, Jesuit friend, told him that he might be hanged someday. Then his family told him to rush back to Europe. But he loved Leonor and he wanted to visit her so they can marry. But Rizal had no time to visit Leonor, so he went back to Europe. Then before that, he went to Paris so he can improve his medical studies. And he went to Germany and he met Almer. And he also met Blumentritt. And he had sons which called him uncle. And they wrote enough letters to fill in 2 books in 10 years. And he also made a book about Noli Me Tangere. Then they published, and when Rizal went back to Europe, he stayed in Barcelona, Spain, and he regret what he had done because he was a burden to his family. While he was in the ship, he talked to people in the ship in their own native language and play and show them his yo-yo toy, a toy that they'd never seen before. But Rizal thought why the Indios cannot be like ants. Because when another one is killed, many others take his place and do his work. He asked why can't they be like ants? So I published a paper with Marcelo del Pilar, Blumentritt, Juan Luna, and Antonio Luna. And it was about the Spaniards treating the Filipinos like an equal partner. Then he finished Noli Me Tangere, but he had some bitter news. One of his brothers-in-law have died, and the Spaniards took away the land of Pasiano, and some were exiled. And Nolimetangare made the friars very mad, and the Filipinos read it eagerly. Then he made another novel called The Filibusterismo, and it was about the death of Gomez, Father Gomez, and Zamora, because they died because of Spaniards. But Pasiano was a friend of Father Burgos, one of the priests. But he told Rizal to change the name Rizal instead Mercado, because that's Mercado is his real name. Then, the meaning of filibusterismo meant a dangerous patriot will soon be hanged. And Rizal can no longer serve his country when he stays in Europe. The battlefield is the Philippines, he wrote. So he had to go back to the Philippines again, and made a league and the league was to unite the Filipinos throughout the land. And the league is called La Liga Filipina. But 3 days later, Rizal was arrested, imprisoned in Fort Santiago, and sent to Dapitan, a lonely town. The news of Rizal's exile upset people around the world, and one of the angry ones was a poor Filipino named Andres Bonifacio, and he organized the Katipunan, a secret society, and his goal was to free the Philippines from Spain by force of arms. Then when Rizal landed in Dapitan, he saw sadness, and he wrote to his family. But he made the people more happy, and the leader became a good friend of his, and he said that Rizal was a perfect gentleman. And spent his money on the church and school for books. There was only one school, but Rizal made his own, and it was a boys' school. And he taught geography, math, sports, English, Filipino, Spanish, and good manners. Then his pupils liked him, So they decided to stay with him as long as they helped on his farm that planted fruit trees and flowers. And he also planted coconuts, cacao, and lanzones. And he also planted coffee. And his pupils helped him to build a pool with a waterfall. And he borrowed the land by the beach. Then his mother and sisters came with him. And stayed in Dapitan in a square house. And he built a lot of kinds of houses. The 6 sides is for rabbits, chickens, dogs, and cats. The one with 8 sides is for pupils and patients to recover from surgery. The rich patients paid him well, but he did not charge the poor ones. Giselle's mind was always active in a sense. Then his mailbox was filled with letters and books from his friends from Europe and scientists. And